Power 98.7, progressively elevating the conversation. Now, we're talking.
Well, the world is in the month of July, marks the month of July as Nelson Mandela Month, which coincides, of course, or which culminates in the celebration of Nelson Mandela Day on the 18th of July. So as we get into that month, we thought, well, who best to speak to than somebody who actually knew the great man himself. Knew him reasonably well. I think it is safe to say. Our guest this evening is one of Madiba's grandsons. He is the son of Makhatho Mandela and Zondi Mandela, and his name is Ndaba Mandela. Good evening.
Good evening, sir. How are you?
I'm excellent, and welcome. You know, every time I hear you speak, I think like, stop doing that. Stop that thing. Stop that thing of everybody does a Madiba.
Well, I don't do a Madiba. I'm just doing me.
You're just that's it. Isn't that the reality? Welcome. It is so good to have you with us, and thank you so much for honoring our invite.
No, thank you, and good evening to all the listeners out there.
Yeah, how are you? Of course, the big news that's now making headlines: the passing of the former deputy president. Is he somebody that you got to know?
I didn't get to know him, personally, but I believe he was a man who was a decisive decision maker. Mm-hmm. And he did us proud, you know, when he chose Cyril over Nkosazana Zuma. So,
that's an interesting thing.
You remember?
I remember, but I'm interested to hear you say he did us proud.
I mean, no, what I meant to say is he chose, I believe,
you already said it,
the better candidate.
Right.
That's what I would say.
Right.
The better candidate.
You watch these things and... you know, I ask you whether it was he was somebody that you got to know. Your paths obviously cross with a lot of these people.
100%.
Whether you like it or not, they will come into your world. And I wonder, I'm sure some of them will always try to get, you know, close to you or... try to get into your thoughts as well. I don't know to what extent you got involved in that kind of where you get close enough to people to even start to decipher what their real politics are. You know.
Well, to be honest with you, I would say quite the opposite has happened here in this country of ours.
Really?
Where you have people not wanting to even engage with a young Mandela. You know, I've seen.
Doesn't they avoid you?
Isn't president number one, isn't president number two, deputy as in, so it's weird what's happening in this country. But, you know, again, there is a saying that goes, a prophet is not a prophet at home.
Yeah.
And so people are trying to compete with Mandela when you should be on the same team with Mandela. And it's like, I can make more money than Mandela, even though he's politically, culturally more relevant. I can be bigger than Mandela because I have more money than Mandela. And that is the sentiment I've seen amongst these current crop of leaders that we have.
Really?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I have been traveling. It stopped because my main region was actually America. The U.S. And, of course, we got kicked out by President Trump in February when he kicked out our ambassador. Yeah. And, business has very much slowed down ever since in America. Yeah. So, obviously, you have to look elsewhere. Yeah. You have to look to the east. You have to look to China. You have to look, obviously, at home. Yeah. And you realize that your name as a Mandela is more welcomed overseas than it is at home.
Well, that is quite a thing to say. And let me make sure that I'm understanding you more properly. So you are finding it that doors have been shut. The doors are shut
in South Africa.
In South Africa.
In South Africa.
When one would have thought a name like Mandela would open every door.
It opens everywhere else in the world.
But not here.
So I cannot complain about one country when I have 200 other countries.
They keep opening the door.
Exactly.
Why do you believe that is?
Like I said, the current crop of leaders, I don't think it's majority of South Africans. I think it's those powerful few who are in those, elite positions, who are, making a good living for themselves, are in political positions, business positions, who have somewhat become either disillusioned or their ego has become so big that they believe, I'm sick of hearing about Mandela. I have done this. I have done this. I am. And they know the only way really to be bigger than Mandela is to make more money than Mandela, because you can't really compete with that name.
Wow, is that really what it's come down to? I mean, then of course, then what would you say then in response to people who express frustration, and say, but hang on, yes. We had Mandela was who Mandela was, it was to this country. But people say, no, I think that we have done, as a country, done a lot for the Mandela family and for Mandela's children, Mandela's grandchildren.
I would ask them, what have they actually done? Because I cannot think of anything. I mean, can you think of anything? I cannot think of anything. Nobody did anything for me. I made the name work for itself. And like I said, most of the work I did has been overseas, not in South Africa, not even on the continent. But that has changed because obviously we had COVID, right? And after COVID, it was still relatively locked down. They opened up slowly. So you had to look to other regions, obviously, to keep up the livelihood. And really, like I said, the people are much more willing to engage with that overseas than they are here. And again, here, it's really those few individuals who are in positions of power, not the outright majority.
When you set off, obviously, it's unavoidable. You can't avoid being Mandela. It's who you are. Yeah. How have you, I don't know whether it was even something that was intentional in terms of how you wanted to show up to the world. You were saying that you were just doing, of course we say it jokingly, but you are just being a Naba. You're just being you.
Yes, I'm being me. But of course, I was raised by the old man.
And actually lived with him from a young age.
From a young age, and I was with him all the way till he passed away in 2013. So he was able to transfer a lot of the values that he had onto me. And that was a man who really believed in the youth. He believed in the next generation of leaders. He felt himself that he was out of touch with the world that he had come out to when he came out of jail. He believed that there was a gap. Being in jail for almost 3 decades is no joke. So he believed in the youth so much, actually, that he wanted to reduce the voting age to 16. But he wasn't able to do so. But that's how much Madiba believed in young people.
You, as you said, you started to live with him when you were as a young man.
Yes.
And did you relate to him? A lot of people in this country were raised by their grandparents.
100%.
Where their own parents became more like their siblings, or older siblings. But by the time, you lived with Madiba, he was already an old man. So
yes.
I cannot see how you could have related with him. Did you relate to him other than just as a grandfather, doing grandfather things?
Yeah, that was just what it was. He was a grandfather who became a father figure, because obviously that father figure was not there. So what happened is that when he came out of jail, he sent my father to university. So I moved in with my grandfather because he was saying, no, you, my son, I want you to focus on your studies. Don't worry about your son. I'll take care of your son while you are studying. And even when my father went to university for the first time when he was 45 years old, finished when he was 50 years old, and died when he was 55 from HIV/AIDS. And so you can see most of my upbringing then was with my grandfather.
Yeah. Did he, though, play that role that a father is meant to play, where he'd be the one who, the disciplinarian, the one who teaches you life? Yeah,
that's him. The disciplinarian.
Yeah.
The teacher. I remember I had lost my jersey, school jersey, for the second time, and it was winter. It was cold. I needed a second one.
And Madiba took interest in your lost gear.
Let me tell you, when I went to tell Madiba, he said, "Today you will sleep outside." And I was like, "Oh, damn, okay." And so I went outside, and it was getting dark.
How old were you then?
Then I was supposed to be 13, 14, right? And all of a sudden, I see Mama Oli, who was the lady who cooked, bringing a blanket. I'm like, "Oh,
this is real."
Yay. I'm like, yes. Oh my God, I can't believe this.
This guy is for real.
It's for real.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Mama," because I used to call her Mama Oli. I'm like, "Mama, what's happening, Mama?"
Yeah.
And she's like, "Sorry, I can't talk." He's watching through the window. I'm like, "Okay, fine." Anyway, about 20 minutes afterwards, he comes out, my grandfather, and he calls me like this. That's when you know you're in trouble now, with the finger.
Yeah.
And I come over and he says to me,
like he's acquitted.
He says, "Ndaba, if you ever lose another jersey again, you will definitely sleep outside. Now go to bed, eat your supper, and go straight to bed." That was him.
That guy.
That was him.
Yeah.
Even taught me how to clean my room. "Ndaba, this place is like a pig. You can't be living like a pig. This is how you fold your shirts." And then he did it. "This is how you fold your pants." And then he showed me. "This is how you do your bed."
Because he was meticulous like that.
And he was like that, like, "This is how you do it." And that was him.
You had that opportunity. But, as you said, when by the time you met Madiba or got to know him, he was in his 70s already. Yeah,
He was.
He was already in his 70s. So you've had to share him, with the rest of the world, literally.
100%.
Right. Was it something easy to, not easy, but was it something, what did it take for you to understand what that actually means? And was it something that you readily accepted at a point that this is not ideal, but it is what it is?
Yeah, to be honest, growing up, I never knew of him. They never talked about him at all.
Really?
You understand? The first time, it was when we went to see him, just before he came out of jail. It must have been maybe a day or 2 days or that week.
Was the first time you had a conversation?
That I met him in jail at Victor Vista, right? And we already knew that he was coming out. And so for me, our parents said we're going to meet him in jail. And I'm like, okay, so as an 8-year-old, I had a typical image of what jail is like,
Right.
Concrete bars and, dogs and heavy security. But when we got there, it was actually a house.
Yeah, it was like, okay.
There was a swimming pool. I never had a swimming pool. I never had a swimming pool in my house. We watched, there was VCR, they had a chef. I met a chef for the very first time. I never knew what a chef was. And this man had his own chef and he's in prison and a swimming pool.
This is confusing.
I'm like, okay. Then we meet the man himself, and of course the man was very happy to meet, his grandkids and the rest of the family. And that's the day I had an idea of what I want to do when I grew up.
Okay. At that moment?
At that moment, I said, I don't want to be a pilot anymore.
Yeah.
I don't want to be a detective anymore.
Oh, is that another option?
I want to go to jail. I want to go to jail.
It's not a bad thing.
I want to go to jail, guys.
Yeah.
I have my pool, my chef. I'm living life.
How did he strike you, though, when you met him then, as you were an 8-year-old?
Yeah. I mean, to be honest,
as you said, because no one had spoken much about him.
Yeah.
But of course, you've heard about this person that carries your name.
To be honest, I never even heard about him until they said, we're going to see your grandfather who's in jail.
No way.
I'm telling you. Because I was born in Soweto. We
Yeah.
moved from Soweto straight to Kofinvaba,
Yeah.
which is a small town in the Eastern Cape. And then from there, moved to Durban, stayed with the Sisulu family. Then from there, I even stayed in Claremont in Durban,
In KZN.
in KZN for a couple of years. And then I moved to Johannesburg. When I moved here, we stayed with my grandmother. I stayed in Vilakazi's house first. Then I stayed with Umakhulu Winnie, Grandma Winnie, yeah.
Yeah, on
Orlando Road.
Vilakazi Street. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was there. And then eventually when, obviously then the old man came out of jail, and then I moved in with him.
I'm curious. I'm just completely astonished to hear that there was not much talk about him. I mean, you were young, to be
I was
fair.
very young.
Yeah.
But also remember, talking about Mandela could get you into trouble back in those days. You know what I mean? I mean, I don't know how many years that lasted, but I can imagine for my father, for example. You know, when my father went to school in Swaziland, he must have been about 8 years old. And they told him that he could not use his name anymore. He had to change his name. Can you imagine the effects that would have on an 8-year-old? That I can't be Makhatho anymore. I must be called Thabiso Ngubane, or whatever the case may be. As in, who are you? What is your identity? You come back into South Africa when you're 18, right? And your father's face is on people's T-shirts, people's posters, but you can't say that's your father because you get into trouble. So I can only imagine the effects mentally, you know, spiritually, emotionally, that it would have on my father. And even when he came out of jail, his father, Kholihlahla, they just never were able to get it together.
To connect.
No. It was a Tamil-Sus relationship, you know? And I guess that he then decided to, you know, put that effort into his grandchildren.
To make up for what he had lost with his son.
With his son. And Tembegile, obviously the older son.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, who, of course, was much younger. Yeah.
So, brother, as many people believe that, oh, your grandfather's face on the money. I'm sure you have lots of money. No, I work for myself.
Yeah.
The revenue, the Preserve Bank does not give the Mandela family
a stipend.
No, guys.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I remember once I was coming out of a restaurant, and the guy asked me for money, like, you know, the car guys and stuff. And I said, oh, sorry, man, I don't have the money. He says, you can't tell me that your father's face is on the money. And I was like, shush, sheesh.
Do I come? Am I supposed to respond to that?
I just gave him, I just pulled out my wallet and I gave him $50.
You found it.
I couldn't do it. What could I do?
Yeah.
I had to.
You're not allowed not to have money.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
No, and he said father, like the way he said it.
Yeah.
It just kind of hit me, man. I was like, hey.
Yeah.
All right.
So this is now, is this part of what the journey that you had to go through to embrace what being Mandela was about?
Well,
And where you have to accept that this individual you share with the rest of the world.
you know, the nice thing is that a lot of these people that would come to the house were famous people. So I would see them and I'd be like, oh my God, is that who I think it is? Is that Michael Jackson? Is that Evander Holyfield over there? Is that, you know, who is that?
Yeah.
So most of the time, unless obviously it was the political stuff, then it's like you can't go into the dining room. You can't go into the lounge. He's busy with guests. And those are not the famous musicians or actors. No. These are like, they're talking serious business.
These are people who are running the country.
So as a kid, you're like, oh man, I left my remote control in there, or whatever, you left something there. So you get a bit irritated. But otherwise, no.
Yeah.
It was always pleasant to meet other people in positions of power.
Yeah, yeah. You speak of how the relationship between your own father and his father. They struggle to go together, and I think that goes to a lot of people who grew apart or who grew up away from their parents, whether it's a mother or a father. Do you think that was more so with your father than it was with his other siblings in terms of their relationship with Madiba?
Yes, I think so, because you must remember, if you remember, his older brother died while Madiba was in prison. And then Madiba goes and writes this letter to my father about how he has to be the man now of the family, and how he has to pull up his socks, etc., etc. Can you imagine the irony, the frustration?
And your dad
Where were you?
was also very young at the time.
Right. You left when I was 4 years old. Now you're telling me I must be the man. Who's going to show me to be the man? You were never there. You are not here to show me who's the man. But I must now be the man. You have put all this pressure on me now. And yet my brother's gone. You are gone. So who's going to be my mentor? Who's going to be my role model? Where would I learn how to be a man? I can only imagine my father's response to that letter, because the way, if you read that letter, my brother, it's like,
it was heavy.
Heavy.
Did you feel somewhat in that letter that Madiba was being harsh or unfair?
He was being unfair, totally overbearing, and you can't expect a child to just all of a sudden.
Because how old would your dad have been then when he lost his brother?
He probably must have been late teenager, maybe 18, into between 18 and 21, 22, somewhere there. Because he died when he was late 20s.
Yeah.
They're 9 years different. I mean, no. You understand? So, yeah. That's where the difficult family dynamics and relationships, you can see that,
My guest in studio this evening is Ndaba Mandela. We're talking, as you can hear, about families. Family is, of course, this month we mark July as Nelson Mandela Month, the 18th, his birthday, recognized and celebrated the worldwide as Nelson Mandela Day. We'll carry on with our conversation. We want to chat to Ndaba. You're more than welcome to join our conversations.
Monday to Thursday, 8 p.m. to midnight. This is Power Perspective with TT.
In conversation with Ndaba Mandela this evening, the line's open for you on 0861 987 000. WhatsApp is 083 303 7093. Now, Ndaba, so what I'm hearing about, what is coming across very strongly in our conversation is, the price of, it sounds too simplistic to just talk about the price of fame, but there was a real price that came with being Mandela, and that there's been a price that your family has had to pay, and probably continues to still pay, in terms of how you're talking about how the country now relates to you as a family. How do you describe that? Is it something that you are coming to terms with? I mean, you were saying, you used the expression about a prophet is not a prophet in their hometown. But is that there's something, a tone of resignation about that? It's almost as if you are resigned to the situation as it is.
It's unfortunately the sad reality that we face. And I have countless examples. I have mentioned two, number one and number two. We had a situation with the family, with our grandfather's house here in Houghton, just up the road.
Up the road.
I'm sure you saw that. And the basic thing that happened there, they made it seem as though it was a family fight. It was not a family fight. It was one person in the family fighting to take control of a house that belonged, according to Mandela, to the 3 orphans, which was me and my 2 younger brothers. Right? If you go to the will, which is publicly available, you will see it's written under the Houghton House, all municipal fees must be paid by the trustees. And these are the 3 people that have usufruct in perpetuity. And it puts our 3 names on it. The trustees stopped paying for the municipal piece. So obviously I start pulling up my socks and I start contributing to that. But on 2019, unfortunately, my auntie comes and takes all the furniture while I was overseas. And my brothers couldn't stop her. And so when I came back and I learned of this, I went to approach her and she told me that, oh, the house is in ruins, oh, the house is dirty. I said, then tell me to clean the house. Why do you have to take all our furniture? That actually is not belong to you. You have actually committed theft. That's a crime. And she says she's adamant she will not bring back the furniture. So I said, well, then, if that's, I'll go and open a case against you. And, you know, a few months later, somebody sends me lot items of an auction that's happening in New York.
Wow.
And 80%, okay, I would say 60% of the items were from my house. So we stopped that auction. Luckily, I had a lawyer in New York. I stopped that auction twice because she tried to do it again 6 months later. And so I wrote a letter to President number 1, Cyril, to explain to him what was happening with our house. And if he could, you know, find a way to mediate and say, guys, it's clearly written in the will, this is what Madiba's wishes for. Can we just all not respect his wishes? And that aunt has her own house in Hyde Park. But now she wants my house.
How difficult is it? You know, all families have issues. All families have challenges, have squabbles and all of that. But what all families or other families don't have is these things happening out in the public, in a public eye. How difficult and how painful is it to have your most intimate and private lives play out in public the way it does? I mean, I guess that's been the story of a family all your lives. But when it comes to this sort of thing, it must be particularly difficult, where these are difficult issues.
These are very difficult issues. These are family issues. They're not issues for the public. And then what can be very frustrating is when people express their ignorant opinions when they don't even know the actual crux of the matter or the situation. But you have to try to ignore it. You have to, just understand that unfortunately your name sells papers. And so you cannot avoid that media attention. As you can see what happened this year in February with my younger brother. So I always tell my kids, the minute you step out of your house, you make sure you are ready to face the world. Never go out in public without washing, number one. Just, you have to be ready for anything when you step outside the house. Your house is your only refuge. After that, the world is...
It's a big bad world out there.
It's a big bad world. Some are cool with you, some are just try to use you. But the current crop of leaders, I've reached out to them and they have never come to the party. They've never come to assist in the situation. And you see these leaders, they were given space by Madiba, is it not? And when Madiba family goes into trouble, should you not come and help them? But you know who came to help? When it came to this past issue with my brother Mbuso, President Zuma came to help us. Yes, he did. So I give my hat off to President Zuma. Wathi angithandi mangibona ingane ehleli etrongweni ejele. And he sent his lawyers to come and attend to my brother's case. So I want to take my hats off and gratitude to Msholos.
But then there will still be those. And I know you are very dismissive to say when people think, say things like, you guys are spoiled or you are, you're entitled.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest, guys. What is privilege? Privilege is you not worrying where you're going to sleep tonight. Privilege is not worrying about your next meal. So me and you are both privileged.
Indeed.
And as privileged people, we have an obligation, a responsibility to the rest of our people to stand up for those who cannot stand for themselves and to be a voice for those who are voiceless in our society. Give a little bit of something to someone else. And that's what Mandela Day is about. It's about giving back to your community and doing something good outside of yourself. And if you have a job, you are privileged. Be thankful. Let's stop complaining. I have traveled many countries, not every country. I haven't been to Tokyo or Jamaica or Cuba. Those are my top three that I need to go to. Anyway, we all have a responsibility to play in making this country a better place, this continent a better place, and ultimately this world. We cannot point fingers out there anymore.
Right. What, I mean, you went to university, followed the traditional path, studied, and all of that. You expressed what your dream was when you were a child, was to be a pilot or a detective.
Right.
None of that came to pass.
None.
So what have you decided to do with your life? I know and I want you can talk here about the Mandela Institute for Humanity, which you started.
Yes.
Why, you felt that this is where your life's work need to be? Have you considered, and if you did consider it, going the route, or is it impossible for you to just go the route of go get a gig and just have some office job, wearing a tie and just doing the mundane, everyday 9 to 5 crap?
Well, let me say I've tried that. My first job, I worked at the Japanese embassy in Pretoria as a political consultant. The second job, I worked at Investec in asset management in Cape Town. And I did a little stint here in Joburg as well.
With Investec.
With Investec.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I felt that I could not sit behind a computer from 9 to 5 every day. You know what I mean? Because what ended up happening, I was looking forward now to lunch. And after lunch, you look forward to knocking off. And after that, you look forward to the weekend. That's not a representation of a healthy life. That's not healthy. You have to love the job you do. Because they say if you love your job, you will never work a day in your life.
Absolutely.
So I had to go on this thing to find my passion. And I ended up being a public speaker for about 12 years in the circus of the USA. Touched a little bit of Europe here, but
like doing the speaking
circuit
circuit.
thing. And then one of my agents said, hey, if you write a book, your fees will go up. So I wrote a book. And that came out in 2018. And then in 2020, just before the COVID, we registered the foundation that I have in America called the Mandela Institute for Humanity that deals mainly with leadership. So we have a leadership program called the Mandela Leadership Program that will be kicking off next year, where we're going to take about 20 young people from South Africa, the continent, and we're going to take 2 from Brazil. Because did you know that Brazil has the highest African diaspora outside of Africa?
Outside of Africa, yes, I did know this, indeed.
Right, and obviously part of the program is to unite people of African origin and to teach them the values of Nelson Mandela. Courage, resilience, passion, compassion, vision, integrity. What are the things and values that you need to be a service-driven leader? Because we want leaders to serve in our communities. A leader is not the best person in the room. A leader is not number one or who has the most money. A leader is a person that serves their community. That's what we want to see. The next generation of African leaders truly serving their people and not their pockets.
If you've said a few things that have told me that politics, and certainly being a politician, is definitely not your path. You speak with deep cynicism about politicians, about the current crop of leaders. So, how then do you see your role in as a Mandela, as a father yourself, as an activist yourself?
Yes, I think we need to equip the next generation of activists. We need to teach our kids and the next leaders what is missing, what are we not happy about with this current crop. How can they become better leaders? If we say Nelson Mandela was one of the greatest leaders that walked this earth, then why are we not dissecting Madiba and finding these values and we have countless examples that we can then impart onto the kids so they can inculcate the values of Nelson Mandela. Because I believe there's a Nelson Mandela that exists within all of us. We need to find him and we need to unleash him onto the world.
Yeah. We've spoken in passing and just sort of touching on the surface of where we are as a country. What do you make of this moment where we find ourselves as a country? This government of national unity. This is South Africa without the ANC being, the party of government. By the way, are you an ANC member?
Yes, I used to be.
No, it can't be both. You either are or you're not. You used to be.
I used to be an ANC member, but these days I'm just not sure. Not sure, to be honest with you. I don't agree.
You're not a member in good standing with any branch at the moment.
I'm not a member. I was part of Ward 73.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not a member in good standing. I don't agree with many things that are happening with the ANC. And we are looking at other avenues.
With a view to becoming actively
involved. Because we need to be actively involved. We have been given.
So I read you wrong. So there is a political bone in you then.
No, there's definitely a political bone. Politics is life, Baba.
Yeah.
There's no political school. Okay, you can go and study political science and international relations, but what you're going to learn there and what you're going to learn in the party is not the same thing.
No.
Politics of the stomach, politics of positions, you name it. I believe that we all need to find a way to give back. It doesn't have to be through the government, but we all need to give back and play our part in society as people who experience what I described as privilege.
And this you have chosen to do via your work with Mandela Institute for Humanity for now. But you are definitely not ruling out the possibility of getting actively involved in party politics.
We're not ruling it out, but we know that it's important for us to make sure we have enough resources and we have access to those resources before we go into politics, because it becomes very troubling when people go into politics only to access resources. That is where corruption now, that thin line, comes in.
Ndaba Mandela is my guest in studio. I'll be back with him, wrap up our remaining moments with our chat, and ask him about his dreams for this country and his, what he still hopes for this country. And I'll ask also the question, like, how do we go about fixing the relationship that we as South Africans have with the Mandelas?
Power Perspective, 8 p.m. to midnight.
My remaining moments with Ndaba Mandela this Thursday night. Now, I hinted as to the question that I would ask about the the relationship that exists between us. And I put the way I framed it is like, how do we fix it? That's assuming that it's broken. It's a relationship that's broken. You are certainly not happy about the way in which South Africans you are finding are relating. And I don't know whether this is reserved for you as Ndaba Mandela, or you are finding a level of, shall we say, for lack of a better word, hostility towards the Mandela name. And I wonder how it lands with you, because obviously now we are living in a time of revisionism where we've got a lot of, what do they call them, peacetime revolutionaries who are even questioning the legacy of Nelson Mandela, who are questioning his role. You've heard, where people could describe Mandela and saying that Mandela and his cohort of leaders sold out, that Kodesa was the big sellout. Just, let me get your thoughts there.
I think people are forgetting who is the founder of MK. I think people forget who was the first man that had the courage, that had the kahunas to bomb the whites, to shoot back at the white people. A man who sacrificed everything, including his own wife and kids, for the greater good of the South African people. People are forgetting their history, or they're not being taught their history. And as a former president who achieved a lot, when his family goes into trouble, should you not be helping his family overcome those challenges instead of persecuting them?
Oh, it's a strong word, persecution.
Yeah.
That's how you're feeling.
Yeah, but why are they fighting? But why is this? But they ask all these questions, but should you not find out what's really the issue with the house, for example? You know what I mean? Because I find people they like to assume things. Whatever they read in the paper is just taken up as truth. And we all know. Malcolm X said, "Read nothing what you believe, nothing what you read, and believe only half of what you see." That's what Malcolm X said, which is one of our teachers. I think the family has challenges like any other family, But our legacy will always be one of freedom, of empowerment, of democracy, and setting exemplary leadership. Maybe there are individuals in the family that do not show or exude that.
I was about to say.
Exude that.
Does members of the family, do they need to do some, introspection? Take a long, hard look at the mirror. Your brother, for example, the kind of strife he keeps getting into, does he also not have to take some responsibility now?
I try. I mean, he's my younger brother, and of course, you can imagine. You feel like, I've been up and down this road with you, Mbuso, for 12 years, and you still are doing these, silly things. Like, at some point, you just have to say, listen, I can't help you anymore. Sorry, brother, but I'm walking away now. I'm walking away. Do you? I'm done. Because it's like I'm hitting myself against a wall or against a rock, and we're not going anywhere. So, Ndaba, you're a father, you have 2 kids. Go and focus on being a better dad. Go and focus on making sure you're securing a safe future for your kids. That's, at the end of the day, I have to live my life. My surname Mandela is not going to pay the bills. The work I do, it pays the bills.
So you still have desires and dreams, but you are not, I'm not hearing somebody who's pursuing grandiose ideas about saving the world or saving the Mandelas for that matter.
No, we need to save ourselves, Baba. We need to save ourselves first and foremost. We need to be in a position of strength. We need to make sure that your cup is full. You cannot save the world if your cup is empty. You need to make sure that your cup is full before you can pour into others.
What's the state of your cup?
My cup is probably at 30%. It's low right now because I have allowed a lot of people into my life who end up not having any value, but they just wanted to take my value. And it's taken me a long time to understand and to be able to cut yourself off and cut them off, to say, Ndaba, focus my boy. Focus my boy, and let's get back to our position of power. Let's fill our cup so that we can continue pouring into others. As we consciously light our own fire, we subconsciously give others the courage to light their own fire.
You've spoken about you being a parent of 2 children. What are the things that you still dream of for them? And what do you dream of for yourself?
Well,
because you're still a relatively young man.
Yes, young 42-year-old man.
Yeah, relatively young.
Obviously, I want to settle down. Unfortunately, me and the mother of my kids, we did not. We went our separate ways. So I'm still a single dad. I do want to settle down eventually. But I would love for my son or daughter, if they choose, to have the option of going to study overseas in America or Europe. Because I believe traveling is an important, integral part of growing up and learning about the world.
Absolutely.
We are global citizens, and it's important to pass that knowledge on to your kids. But ultimately, I know that South Africa is not one of the best countries in the world. South Africa is the best country in the world. And we need to continue making it better. And the only way it's going to get better is through youth leadership, youth involvement, and ultimately through unity. Country coming together. So
it sounds like you're saying Msaga, make South Africa great again.
What a character. What a character.
A discussion for another day. Ndaba, I want to thank you for making time for us this evening, for coming in. I really appreciate it, for being so vulnerable, for being so honest,
Thank you.
and being so frank. Wish you well.
Thank you.
In your own journey as a father, and want to be husband again. And the work that you want to do through the Mandela Institute for Humanity. I wish you well with the family.
Thank you.
That you can get past these difficult moments, as all families eventually figure out a way of doing it. But thank you so much.
Thank you, brother.
For being with us.
Thank you. Thank you very much. A lot of people, I just want to say, tough times don't last.
Yes, absolutely.
Tough people do. So people out there experiencing, going through things, just keep pushing.
Beautifully said. That's a great note on which to end it.